It's the Security Weekly News, and it's episode 401. It's Friday, the 26th of July, and that crazy old man in the cave in Nha Trang told me I would die on episode 400, but it didn't happen. What could it be? Buy a lottery ticket. Anyway, today we got Twitter, the Department of Justice, DarkSeoul, not the way you think, fake employees, PlugX, Stargazer Ghost, Aaran Leyland, and more on the Security Weekly News.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week. Your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for the Security Weekly News.
Application Security Weekly delivers interviews and news from the worlds of AppSec, DevOps, and all the other ways people find and fix software flaws. Join us as we explore how the latest news highlights modern security practices or reminds us of the missing ones. We also bring insights from interviews on topics from training to threat modeling, from open source tools to cloud-native techniques, plus an occasional reference from new wave to synthwave. Find us at securityweekly.com/subscribe or look for Application Security Weekly wherever you pick your podcasts.
All right, it's the Security Weekly News from the island of Elba. I'm Doug White. You know, every time you hit that like and subscribe button, a YouTube host gets their wings, so pound away. All right, wanted, virtually dead or alive. I love these, like, you know, almost vigilante approaches. I mean, it's so Old West, but the U.S. State Department is offering a reward of up to $10 million, million with an M, for information which would help capture Rim Jong-hyuk, a North Korean military hacker. Now, I suspect that Rim Jong-hyuk is probably in North Korea, which means it's going to be a little tough to go grab him. But I guess if you got information. Rim Jong-hyuk is part of the Andariel North Korean hacking group, and the group was linked to the Maui ransomware attacks, which targeted critical infrastructure and healthcare organizations in the United States and elsewhere. Hyuk was charged with conspiracy to commit computer hacking and conspiracy to commit money laundering, and a warrant was issued on the case on Wednesday. So they actually have a name. They have a court hearing in the U.S. federal court, and they issue an indictment with a warrant that basically says they can arrest you should you show your face. So I guess if this person shows up at DEF CON or something, they can grab them. So if you know that they're coming to DEF CON, you should phone in a tip, and then you might get $10 million. You can send us 10% for letting you know. But the Maui attacks were encrypting computers and servers that were used for medical tests, electronic medical records, and really were heavily targeted are targeting the healthcare industry. The ransom payments that they got were then used to fund malicious operations against the U.S. government and entities of the U.S. government, like U.S. and foreign defense contractors. So this has been a North Korean approach to business for a long time. They ransomware people, they get the money, and they use it to further their attacks on the U.S. government. In November of 2022, Andariel breached a network of U.S. defense contractors and stole more than 30 gigs of data, which included information on military aircrafts and satellites, although it was later revealed that all this was unclassified data and a lot of it was really, really old. Sometimes I'm thinking maybe that 10 million would be better served spending it on U.S. Security infrastructure, but okay, whatever. But the Department of Justice has a Tor secure drop site server if you want to submit tips on Andariel or any other hacking group, or turn yourself in. Andariel is also called APT45, and they have about 35 other names for some reason. My favorite is DarkSeoul, which is spelled S-E-O-U-L, you know, like Seoul, South Korea. Yeah, get it? I know if you have to explain the joke, it's not a joke, but it wasn't my joke, so it's okay for me to explain it. So DarkSeoul, I did like that. Now, look, I've been telling companies about this since the dark ages, you know, since the computers were coal-fired. I've been saying this stuff. You have to vet your hires, okay? I mean, I'm sorry. When I first started doing that stuff back in the dark ages, I was absolutely shocked that companies would just hire people who said, hey, my name's Randy. I have a PhD from Harvard. And they would hire them and go, hi, this is Dr. Randy, and I'm like, really? I couldn't believe it. They would interview somebody, and they would hire them, and they were working in the building. And I mean, and even the ones that were vetting weren't doing very much. I mean, they would just call, they look at they would check your references. This is always one of my favorites, checking references, which means they call some guy named Ted that was listed as a reference on your resume or on a sheet of references. And, they don't vet them either. They just call some number and go, hi, is this Ted? And the person goes, yeah, man, this is Ted. They're like, so do you know Randy? Oh, Randy, man, he's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I caught a guy with a fake Harvard diploma on the wall because it was in English instead of Latin, because all Harvard diplomas were in Latin. And I thought something was fishy about it. I called somebody I knew who went to Harvard, and I asked him, and we caught the guy. He was fired. We caught all kinds of people who lied about their college degrees, about how many times they've been arrested. We caught people with, warrants out for their arrest that were in other states. People lied about their experience. They said, oh, yeah, I worked there for 10 years. And you're going, wait a minute. So you started work there when you were 16 years old? Oh, well, I guess maybe I inflated that a little bit. I mean, and a lot of times they would just openly admit that they lied. I mean, just like we started looking at stuff like schools and medical offices, churches, they weren't doing anything. They would just hire these people. And, you need to do national level background checks. I don't mean those local background checks where they just see if you have a warrant currently in the state, because people just move across state lines, they're good to go. You need to do national level checks on these guys. I was telling this church one time, they need to do national level checks on these people who want to take youth groups camping in the mountains. I'm not even making that up. That was a real thing. I mean, it was like, really? So what's going on with this story was bad guy types are using online and remote to really wiggle their way into your organization, not through the base, through the front door. And then they get paid even. So this one was about a company called KnowBe4, and you're probably familiar with them, but they provide security awareness and training, and they do conduct pre-hiring background checks for employees. And in this case, they conducted 4 separate video conference interviews with this person before they hired them. So what? I mean, you don't know who I am. I mean, they verified that the person they interviewed was the same person in the photo that was included with the resume, and then hired them as a principal software engineer. Now, later, they found out that the photo was AI enhanced, and that the person that they had hired was a North Korean hacker who, as soon as they finished the HR process, sent them a MacBook, and the person literally within minutes of receiving the MacBook began loading malware onto the company-issued workstation. Now, the SOC, they had a SOC, a lot of places don't. The SOCs noticed this and began trying to reach this person, but they were told the person was unavailable, and then later they couldn't even get through at all. I'm like, you need to come up with a plan for how you're going to vet people that you are hiring, especially in the age of remote workers. Because think about it. You put out a call for resumes, people send them in, you hire this person, you maybe run a brief background check on them in the state or something. Yeah, and you know what? Guess what? How do you validate that someone's who they say they are when you've never met them in person? And even if you have met them in person, how do you validate what they're telling you? Did that person really have a CISSP? Did you check? We saw these things where people didn't have CCEs, and we had a website. You could look up their CCE number and see if it was who they said they were. And one of the ones we vetted, the number was made up. I knew it was made up because the number was too big. And I was like, you really have a CCE? I was interviewing this person in person. I was like, you really have a CCE? And the guy's like, oh, yeah, I do. And I was like, really? Who did you take the class? Where did you take the exam? And they were like, oh, I don't remember the name, and blah, blah, blah. It was unbelievable. And this stuff has been going on for a long time. But with remote, it's even worse. So before you turn these new hires loose on your network and your customers, you may want to be sure they are what you think they are. Develop a vetting plan. And yes, you need to include all the original stuff, not just local information, but national background check, maybe international background checks. Meet them in person at Denny's. I don't know. Whatever, you need to do something to ensure they're who they say they are, or you're going to get got. So think about it. PlugX is a rat. that has been used. It's been being used. I mean, you've probably heard of it because it's been around so long. Chinese hackers and Chinese attackers have been using PlugX forever. They update it. It's just like a regular piece of software, and it gets updates and version numbers and subversion. Yeah, it's like amazing. But it is a common tool used by Chinese of all sorts, from military base to just Chinese hackers. French police and Europol are pushing out a tool which will remove PlugX malware from infected devices in France. Because I guess there was a lot of that going on, and of course the Olympics and so forth. So Sequoia is a cybersecurity firm, and they reported on this and wrote a whole big thing about it. And we're talking about a botnet for PlugX that spreads through USB flash drives, which sounds really old school, but hey, whatever works, works. And even though PlugX was abandoned by the developer, it continued to spread because, like any kind of malware, it's just sort of sitting out there floating around. And it ultimately was infecting around 2.5 million devices. Sequoia took over the abandoned command and control servers. They didn't say how, and they noted that those CNC servers were receiving up to 100,000 pings from infected hosts daily trying to phone home, and that they found 2.5 million unique connections from 170 countries over 6 months. Now, Sequoia then proposed a cleanup mechanism that would be used to push a plugin out to these PlugX infected devices, which would cause them to delete themselves, essentially. Now, they got a little nervous because they started thinking about, we're getting ready to push out a plugin to 2.5 million computers around the world, and this could possibly violate some laws. So they contacted law enforcement. And just for your reference purposes, that's a pretty good idea. So, before you push something out to people all around the world, you might want to let law enforcement know and talk to legal and make sure you're not about to get in deep hot water. They also proposed a method that would scan connected USB drives for malware and remove it, but they determined there might be damage from this, and they could easily wipe somebody's data or damage their drive. Europol has now received a solution from Sequoia, and they are in the process of sharing it with other partner countries. France is obviously on high alert since the Olympics is getting ready to start. And of course, they already got, hit with arson attacks on their high-speed rail this morning and so forth. The operation started on the 18th of July to wipe the malware and is expected to continue into the autumn. So, I mean, can you imagine Paris with the Olympics running? I was just this morning going, oh my God. I mean, Paris is so bad with traffic and everything and so hot already. Yeah, no, it's a good time to head to the country, maybe somewhere in northern Finland or somewhere for a nice holiday. Yeah. CrowdStrike CEO George Kurtz posted yesterday that 97% of Windows sensors are back online as of yesterday, so almost a week since this happened, and thanked all the, quote, tireless efforts of our customers, partners, and the dedication of our team at CrowdStrike. You might have thanked all the millions of people who got trapped in airports, subways, and grocery stores and so forth, but no such thanks seem to be forthcoming. Kurtz said that they were deeply sorry to the 3% of customers who are still being impacted by this and promised they would not rest until we achieve full recovery. So if you've been under a rock, the CrowdStrike event, which started last week, brought down a large number of Windows servers worldwide and pretty much brought the planet to a screeching halt since, well, apparently the underlying fabric of the universe, right down to the space-time foam continuum, is running on Windows Server with CrowdStrike. But people were trapped. All the airlines were down except Southwest, of course. And Southwest runs on Windows 3.1 from 1991. And no, I'm not making that up. I actually verified that story. All the airlines, with the exception of Southwest, were grounded. Pretty scary. I mean, the airports were shut down. The airlines were shut down. The trains were shut. I mean, everything was failing. If you want to watch, Josh and I talked about this a lot. We did a whole show on it on last Friday, so it was episode 399. So if you want to check that out, you can. But CrowdStrike has now promised that they would work on 3 things: enhanced resilience and recoverability. Thanks, guys. Refined deployment strategies. Well, thanks, guys. And boost third-party validation. Yeah, thanks, guys. That would all be nice. You might want to think about that before you push out multiple updates every day that could cause something like this. I know they didn't think about it. Developers never think like this. It's just like, yeah, push the update, poof, the whole world stops. They probably certainly didn't imagine. The outage so far has estimated to have a cost of around $5 billion with a B in losses, and about 25% of Fortune 500 companies had an outage. Airlines, healthcare, and banking were the biggest losses in this area. In the 3% club of people who just haven't got it back running yet includes Delta Airlines, who in the big book of unfeeling, insensitive responses, canceled thousands of flights, told people that their kids who were, visiting grandparents or whatever were not allowed to fly, or worse, kids that were at summer camps who needed to fly home were told, sorry, no, you're not going to be allowed to fly on Delta, and we're not, and here's some free frequent flyer miles for your trouble. Yeah, but Delta is now being investigated for their treatment of passengers during the outages by U.S. Transportation Department. Bad treatment by an airline. Hard to imagine that happening. I sat on a runway for 6 hours last year because you couldn't figure something out. But anyway, I really just feel honored after they stopped spitting on me when I got on the planes. And sorry, I know flight attendants have a really tough job. Really, I shouldn't say stuff like that. Be nice to your gate agents and flight attendants. Seriously, it's corporate you want to dislike. Seriously, I mean, you want to yell at a gate agent who can push a button and reroute you to some isolated airport in Belarus? I've seen people doing that, screaming at some poor hapless gate agent. I knew a gate agent who got her face slammed into a keyboard once by some angry idiot. Just don't do that stuff. I'm just going to smile at them. I mean, they can't help it. They're just trying to do their job. I mean, telling me my flight's been delayed for the 10th time and, oh yeah, now it's canceled, even though I just been telling you it wouldn't cancel, all that. And I can go stand that long line and rebook. Yeah. I mean, what are they going to do about it? Play nice. According to Cisco Talos, the incident response team documented a 30% increase in attacks targeting tech developers and service providers over the last year. So that's a huge increase year to year. The increase moved the tech sector to the top of the list of the most targeted industries for the quarter. Tech accounted for nearly a quarter, 25% of all observed attacks, and has now moved ahead of retail, healthcare, and pharmaceuticals as the most popular targets for criminal attacks. Well, it makes sense. This is believed to be based on the recent trend of what is called upstream attacks. Now, an upstream attack, if you don't know, is a term that's used when they go after something like Snowflake, which they went after. And Snowflake is hosting all your services. And so when they attack Snowflake, they're hosting thousands of companies' services. And so you get a lot more bang for your buck, right? I mean, you locked all the doors on your house, but if I can just walk in through a hidden tunnel in your basement and wiggle through your vents and grab your toes while you're asleep, yeah, I'll leave you with that. But you get the idea. Snowflake was providing, of course, cloud-based hosting for servers and desktops. So if I'm sitting in that, I can get to whatever I want in your organization. I don't need to target you. I can just go after the hosting provider. Tech firms, which is all of us, are housing all sorts of goodies. And why attack the hospital directly when I can attack the cloud hosting service that hosts all the hospitals and the U.S. defense industry at the same time, right? I mean, yeah, like that. So basically, we were talking about with the CrowdStrike thing last week, you probably need to start getting a bigger understanding. And we've been saying this forever. You got to understand the whole threat service, not just our surface, not just your local base stuff. You've got to understand how it interacts with the world at this point. And that's getting complicated. And, and if you're an upstream provider, well, you're a big target right now. So be vigilant. A network of over 3,000 GitHub accounts is being used to spread malware and targeting, well, pretty much everybody. But they've been targeting gamers, malware researchers, and other bad guys who are seeking to spread malware. So they're just targeting anybody, which, I read this and I thought, is this something new? They acted like this was a big new thing, but in reality, it's a tale as old as network computers, right? I mean, remember that bulletin board system running on the mainframe like CompuServe or Sierra Online or some of those good old days kind of things where you could download an executable Star Trek game that would wipe your 5 meg hard drive? Yeah. Well, I mean, this was documented by Checkpoint, and they called this GitHub collection, Stargazer Ghost Network, and said it was being operated by a cybersecurity firm called Stargazer Goblin. I don't know who makes up these names, but basically what they do is they post links on Discord with info like how to increase your followers' audience. The ones I saw were pretty broken English kind of thing. And they post that on Twitch, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Trovo, TikTok, KickChat, Telegram, Discord, etc. And if you do click the link, you end up in this giant network of GitHub accounts, 3,000 of them, which, basically allows them to reinforce themselves, right? So they have one GitHub account endorsing another GitHub account, endorsing another GitHub account, and they're creating sort of trust chains in this GitHub environment. And basically it makes it kind of look okay and legitimate, right? And they of course have fake downloads. So he's like, oh, 10,000 people downloaded this. So, okay, it must be safe. I mean, this is not new, but it is a sort of modern kind of phishing lure that is really, really dangerous. The belief is that generative AI may be being used to create all of these accounts and make them all seem legit. So it's just kind of a self-fulfilling circular logic sort of thing. Over a 4-day period in January of this year, Check Point saw the Stargazer Ghost Network distribute Atlantida Stealer for over 1,300 separate infections. I mean, I call this the Jamaican holiday experience, right? I went to Jamaica once and I did something I would never do in New York. I tried to rent a motorcycle and a guy was, had a good price. And I said, okay, good deal. And the guy said, the motorcycle's back here in the alley. Yeah, in New York, I would have laughed in the guy's face. But, it was out of context. There were palm trees. I was on a holiday and I got robbed. Yeah. So these guys are heavily using services we all use and often are using in a kind of distracted state, right? I mean, we're gaming or we're doing music or we're watching a show or we're reading or interacting with other people. So these links are sort of popping up in comments and things like that. And that was exactly how BBS attacks work. I could make a file called zorkcheats.exe and post it. And you need help with Zork. So you download it, run it, and I do something nasty to you. You were focused on the game and trying to figure out the answer to a puzzle. Okay, this works the same way. So you might want to remind all your people that no link is safe. And that especially when you're distracted, especially when you're trying to rent a motorcycle on a holiday in Jamaica, especially when you're playing a video game and you're stuck. I mean, even if it appears to be verified, it could be fake. I mean, this is like typo squatting and puny code and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I think I downloaded a help disk for Leisure Suit Larry too. Yeah, that could be bad. I might still have it here somewhere. A 53-page report, which is pretty short for the government, was issued. This is practically like a memo, right? It was issued Tuesday by the U.S. Justice Department Inspector General, which affirmed that U.S. law enforcement agencies are once again going to be able to communicate with tech firms about foreign influence operations, such as the Russian campaign to interfere with the 2016 presidential election, but provided guidance on exactly what they could do and what they shouldn't do and how to do it. It warned that officials need to be more systematic and careful about the nature of those communications to ensure they don't cross a fine line between disclosure and censorship. Now, this memo went on to say that the Justice Department does not have a comprehensive strategy for engagement with social media companies regarding foreign malign influence issues. It goes on and lays out a framework for the FBI to resume having regular meetings with tech companies and social media. Back in 2018, the FBI had started regularly sharing info with social media firms about foreign malign actors, which included their account handles, email addresses, and IPs. But this all turned into a political mess. Basically, all these accusations started about one side or the other side trying to suppress the other side and so forth and so forth and such. And a lot of court cases later, a Supreme Court case in June of this year overturned all the cases, saying that the plaintiffs did not demonstrate they were harmed by the FBI actions and such. But it was still a big deal. So mostly the lawsuits were being brought by conservatives who were claiming that the centrist U.S. presidents or the other side and the government were trying to suppress their views with accusations against the president of the United States, the Surgeon General, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the new report means that clearer guidance regarding the First Amendment of the United States, which awards us all the right to say whatever we want, doesn't protect us from consequences, though. But it does involve a billion court cases and a lot of lawyers to interpret. So in the meantime, a lot of lawyers are going to get employed dealing with this. But just saying. Well, howling back into the world from the island of Malta or some such exotic place, it's oiled up and suntanned correspondent Aaran Leyland. Hi, Aaron.
Hey, Dr. Doug. Yeah, Malta would have been nice, but I was back in Cyprus and I smashed on the factor 50. So I look
50.
50 all over.
I have like 95, and even that doesn't help sometimes.
Well, apparently we look best on the show looking like ghosts.
Yeah, I like the fluorescent tan look. It's
or like chimpanzee astronauts, which I'm wearing today. Anyway.
Well, it looked fun, and I didn't want to say where you actually were, so I just used Malta.
No, it's okay. It's fine.
But I know you said
I was in Cyprus. That's where all the Russian.
I don't like to out people's holidays.
That's where all the Russian spies are. So I was keeping my head down, dyed my hair, wore glasses and stuff like that. So if you see any pictures, it doesn't look like me. Right. Anyway. CrowdStrike.
Yeah, my favorite thing ever was I went to training for like top secret stuff, and they said if a woman approaches you in the bar, I was like, yeah, it's definitely a spy. I was like, I unlike Aaron, I've never had a woman approach me in a bar. I've seen it done with other people, but it never happened to me. So I was like, if any woman comes up and starts talking to me in a bar, it's definitely a KGB agent, no doubt.
It's one of my constant bugbears that I feel that I've never been honey trapped, and I'm like, please come and honey trap me, all you 10 out of 10 beautiful Slavic type women. It's like, I'm in. Let's roll. Right, let's talk about CrowdStrike, which nearly upset my return. Well, only because you make the shows really long and then I get told off. It's like, why don't you keep Doug under control?
It's not. Yeah, I know. I went long. You take all the time you need.
Let's go for a Pulse Security Weekly length show, and Sam and Renee will be shouting at us over the monitors. So it's okay. Right. Sorry, Sam. Sorry, Renee. Right. Sorry, production team. Okay. How a cheap barcode scanner helped fix CrowdStrike Windows PCs in a flash? It did not fix CrowdStrike. Anyway, shortly after Australian branch of accounting advisory firm Grant Thornton experienced a series of blue screens of death, them and everybody else, on their Windows PCs and servers last Friday, when I was trying to get home from Cyprus, not Malta, worried that I wasn't going to get home. Hey ho. Senior engineers, we should name check these guys, right? So the first one is Rob Volts. It sounds like electricity. It's a W at the start, but I'm reckoning it's volts. So he recalled a detail. Oh, yes, he did. Anyway, so PCs treat barcode scanners the same as keyboards upon booting. I think that's a verbatim quote anyway, but pretty cool. Probably a hack hidden in there somewhere. Go forth and do that. So the insight gained significance when the company had to deal with the chaos caused by CrowdStrike and the chaos caused by me moving my mouse. I'm not sure any of you's heard about it anyway, but apparently it sent numerous, it says in the article, PCs. In a bit of a loop and a meltdown. So anyway, there's 100 servers apparently at Grant Thornton, Australia. Problematic cycles, flaws, testing software. You all know about it now. Yeah, problematic, just a little bit, unless you were stuck at an airport for 3 days or something. Okay. Anyway, the article states that Grant Thornton encrypted all their devices using BitLocker. Okay, we all know about BitLocker, and they talk about 48 character keys for rebooting. They started with their server restoration, smart people. We know we're dealing about smart people. I'm bringing in another name check here, Ben Watson, the infrastructure manager, along with Volts, decided they would go for an automatic recovery approach, which is amazing. We need more automation in our lives. It's like soon me and Doug will be automated, I reckon. Anyway, looking at security, BitLocker keys, not very good for sharing them easily, security risks, all that type of stuff. So, communicating the keys to employees via phones, I wrote here, seemed like a bit of a bitch, because I don't think I liked what the comment was. It was so boring. Anyway, the idea of verbalizing 48 character key to people under pressure just seemed a bit shit. At this point, he remembered the utility, this good part of barcode scanners, and the company possessed the BitLocker keys for all its computers, leading Volts and his team to write a script. We love a script. And then converted these keys into barcodes, and they could be shown on the screen of a secure management server whenever needed. The script would take a computer's host name and generate the appropriate barcode along with a lapse password required for the machine recovery. So off he went on his bicycle probably, and he purchased a standard bar scanner for some Australian dollars equivalent to 36 US dollars. And then whenever the computers demanded the key, upon restart, using the scanner and the barcode display on the service monitor resulted in the systems accepting the data as it was manually entered. They simplified the process, and it was all like really cool. And they all slapped each other in the back, and then remote workers were told to bring the PCs into the office. And by midday, all PCs were serviced, taking 3 to 5 minutes per device instead of 20. So that was all really cool, to be honest. And there's just loads in here about little LinkedIn things and stuff. But well, there you go then. I just love what seems like a very simple solution to most, with the nuance that these simple solutions only come from very smart people. So hats doffed. I should grab one of my hats doffed. We should doff hats to the very smart people. And you get my story of the week and my admiration. Tea and medals for everyone. Back to Dr. Doug in the studio. Peace out, party people, in record time.
Wow. That was record time, but you can take all the time you want. It's okay. We don't have a clock here, but maybe 2 hours might be a little much. Thank you, Aaron. All right. Well, just letting you know, this is just sort of an information item. If you use Twitter or X or Boingo or whatever Elon wants it called today, Elon and Twitter have opted you into Grok training. Now, if you don't know what any of that means, Grok is an AI that Elon Musk ordered developed to compete with ChatGPT. And under the settings/privacy/Grok menu of X, you have been opted in. So you can go in there and opt out if you want to and hope that they honor it and don't just say, oh, yeah, that button doesn't do anything. But you can even delete your conversation history there if you want to. Now, X basically enabled this data sharing by default for every user, which means you have consented without consenting to them using all your posts, interactions, and data to train Grok and share this data then with XAI, which is the back end for Grok, I guess. Now, maybe you're okay with that and you want to support Elon. I know people that are big on that. But look, me, I already opted out. So just letting you know. But I thought I would inform you of that and put up an article about it if you're interested. And that is the news. Thank you, Aaron. And I will see you next time on the Security Weekly News.